candid conversations, unfiltered opinions, and humor with Beck's podcast.
Hello, good day. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Great. About yourself. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so ecstatic to have you here. We are about to delve into very interesting conversation, so please come on the ride with us. We need chaperones, Jeff and I.
Yes.
So Jeff is here to talk about podcasting and, basically the journey to here. And I'm excited to talk about this topic with Jeff because he's had quite a few revolutions and we had a discussion before getting here. So if anybody's interested in either starting a podcast, growing a podcast, maintaining a podcast, just curious about podcasts or even digital messaging, right? This will be a great podcast for you to listen to. And I'm going to learn from Jeff today. And he doesn't know this yet, but the learning doesn't stop today for me. Maybe he knows by now, but okay. Hi, Jeff.
Hello. Let's get into it.
So podcasting, really? Why?
Yeah, it's a thing. I really fell in love, and I do have a little trinket I show people.
Right.
Back in 2007 for Father's Day, I got one of the first iPads that had a color screen and the wheel, and I was so amazed that this technology existed. At that time, I had a skateboard shop, and I was just packing orders all day. And I would listen to the podcast, and it wasn't easy back then to listen to the podcast. You actually had to log into your iTunes account on your computer, select the podcast that you wanted to download them to your computer, then go get your iPod, plug your iPod into your computer, hit the sync button. It didn't even do it automatically. You had to say, sync my ones I downloaded to my iPod, and it would delete the ones that you had listened to. And I would take this into work, and there were some great podcasts back in 2006, 2007, like Marketing Over Coffee, the Beancast, the Joseph Jaffe had a podcast, and I realized I'm getting this free education from these people who are just passionate about digital marketing and the potential of how you can connect with people. And that lit this like last 15-year passion within me. And I was like, oh, well, if they're doing it, I can do this too. So in 2011, I started a small podcast, just a local like Pittsburgh marketing podcast with somebody else who was in the same industry as me. And I don't know if, this is something from working with me, but within 4 episodes, she became the marketing director for Ghirardelli Chocolates out in San Francisco. So she left. She was like, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this podcast with you anymore. But we really had no idea what we were doing. We didn't understand what an RSS feed was.
Right.
We didn't understand how to distribute a podcast or what a podcast host was. We were just publishing audio files on a website and calling it a podcast. And that passion, stayed with me. I still consumed probably 30 hours of podcasts a week and just taking it in and absorbing and thinking about what I wanted to do. And in 2015, this platform came around and people either remembered or they don't. It was called Blab. And the internet's kind of divided by those who were there for Blab and those weren't. And if you were there, Blab holds this place in your heart that hasn't been replaced yet. We haven't found anything similar to it.
Really?
And this was one of the first 4 in the box live stream services. So you could go live, and Blab had this amazing social element that would deliver 30 to 40 people to your stream within the first 3 minutes. So I would do a trivia show. I'm some guy from Pittsburgh I'm no Alex Trebek. I'm not. I should be. I'm the last person should be hosting a trivia show. But I'd have 8 people come on,
right,
and we would do a tournament style bracket every show till we got, we went from 8 to 4 to 2 to a winner.
Right.
And it was just so much fun being able to connect. The world would come to this one spot, play a game with me for an hour, and then we go on our own way. But Blab showed me that, okay, there's something here that's bigger than just a podcast, bigger than just having a guest on. I'm literally connecting to different people from different parts of the world. We're having some fun. We're laughing. We're sharing these moments, and we're all scattered throughout the world. And I just love that idea. And when Blab folded, it wasn't from a lack of trying. We tried Google Hangouts and YouTube Lives and Appear In and Hop In and nothing. You could live stream. Live streaming is easy, but having that social element and that connection with people just hasn't been there.
Right.
So my idea, this is what we're going to get into, I think, in this episode,
Yes.
was if Blab isn't here for me to go into the world, then maybe I can go into the world with my podcast. So I have some pictures I could send you where I decided I could build. The first concept was called Theater Anywhere,
Okay.
right? Like, what if I just loaded up my car with some speakers, a mixer, some microphones, and I went to a park, maybe a walking trail or a pavilion, and I just set up my stuff and see whoever walked by, I would start, interacting with them on some sort of level.
Right.
And I had it built, and I did a couple like remote appearances, just like with friends and family and stuff, nothing too big. But somebody I know opened a coffee shop and wanted to do a live stream show with free tacos. And I was like, "Oh, I'm in." Like, I don't want any money. I just wanted to do this. Like, I wasn't asking for money. It was a totally free show, and we had it scheduled for March 30th, 2020, and we were so excited to do the show. It wasn't the best timing, some things happened around March of 2020,
Right.
and we ended up canceling the show. But that idea of, okay, I'm taking this podcast to a space, I can have people come there and we can fully interact while I'm recording an episode.
Right.
So that Theater Anywhere, kind of became, well, what if I combine these two ideas of Blab and being somewhere, but I'm not limited by capacity, because that's the other thing. If you wanted to, put on a show, you might have to, rent a small theater or a venue, but you can only sell as many tickets as there are seats in that building. So I'm like, okay, what if I had the infinite seat theater?
Mm.
And that's kind of where I'm at today with what I've built. We opened in June. Is what if I could get on a stage, I could have an audience in front of me. We have an audience, and my theater holds about 40 people.
Right.
I'm doing a show, presenting it to them, but I'm also live streaming this show. And what if, like Blab, I could have virtual guests? They could come onto my stage from anywhere in the world. I'm interviewing them from the stage for the people in front of me for the live stream. The people in front of me are asking questions. The people on the live stream are leaving comments and asking questions and popping up on screen. So now this concept of the infinite seat theater has really become like a portal to the world. When you get on that stage now, which was what we opened, I believe it's one of the first podcast theaters. I've seen some iterations and some similar things, but from what I'm trying to do, it's almost in the realm of like a comedy club built for podcasting specifically. I haven't seen too many things like it. And when you see it and you experience it and you're in the moment and you see all this technology working to bring you to the world and the world to you at the same time, there's something incredibly powerful about podcasting live from a stage. And all these things that have led me to this point, now we're seeing it. Now you're seeing what's the true potential, what's possible. And when we start talking about what's possible for podcasters, it becomes infinite in the options that we're able to deliver for them.
I love it. Like, you started with skateboards, now into podcasting, right?
Yes.
Can you remember, you talked about it a little bit in our earlier conversation. Can you remember making that pivot? Granted, you had the soft skills that kind of like prepared you for the podcasting world. And, you said it here. When you started, you didn't know what you were doing, RSS feed and, any of the backend stuff that we don't usually talk about, right? Can you remember, like, what that pivot was like emotionally for you, going into that space? Was it just your love of disseminating information digitally, or was it like this cool new thing that you just wanted to try out?
I think a lot of it comes from like my background. I am like immersed in counterculture. I grew up skateboarding as a kid in the 80s and 90s. I grew up with punk rock music, hip hop music. Even now as an adult, I play disc golf, right? That's a very counterculture alternative to what we would call ball golf on a golf course. Like we're in the woods throwing plastic discs at trees. Like it's all that mentality and that DIY mentality of, like, when you get on a skateboard, there's no rules. A skateboard can be whatever you make it. It's part art, it's part sport, and it's creative. There's a very creative process to skateboarding and putting tricks together and understanding the mechanics of how tricks work and trying things 1,000 times before you get one right. And that mentality of doing the work, doing the repetition, that probably played into my love of skateboarding, opening a skateboard shop. And all those things that I did as a child, like the repetition and the failure and trying things 100 times, well, that was also during the time when the internet was a wild, wild west. From 2001 to 2008, I couldn't have picked a better time to open an e-commerce business where there wasn't really Web 2.0, and it's as you know it now. We kind of had some MySpace, we kind of had some Facebook starting to come up. What you see now with all this generated content from people, that was just getting started. So while I was there in my little lair, packing orders, I was also creating media. We were putting out our own little fanzine. We had digital media. We had our own little social network, our own message board. We were producing YouTube videos in late 2006, 2007. All these things that meant DIY mentality, all the way up through like the birth of really what now is the second generation of web. That was all for me. It was my playground. Like that's what I grew up doing, these things, the email marketing and buying AdWords very early on. Those things and that mentality pushed me into what is now podcasting and creating podcasting, because when you get on that microphone, just like a skateboard, there's no rules, right? You can record whatever you want. You can produce whatever you want. Those things you put out into the world, and hopefully the world accepts them. Hopefully you're a good person. The world accepts what you're producing, and you may inspire other people who are going to do the same thing. Maybe they may even copy you, which is great. If somebody tells me they did a trivia show, I am so happy they took something that maybe I influenced them, and they did it and put it out into the world as their own for somebody else to be influenced by. So like that's what DIY is. I mean, that is, you can take something, you can make it your own, you can give it to the world, and then the world can run with it too. So I love that idea of it's only owned while you're in the process of creating it, and then you pass it off to somebody else and let the ideas grow and evolve.
I love it. So what has been the steepest learning curve for you, coming into the podcast world?
Ooh. Well, it doesn't happen overnight. Like everything you learn in podcasting, and there's some people who are just like, I want to do a podcast, but I'm so afraid. Like even me, I didn't want to hear my voice. I hated, like I hated the way I sounded. I don't even like the way I look on camera, but I've gotten, I did it. I'll get back to this, but I now, 7-8 years later, I understand where to place myself, how to slow down sometimes when I need to really get a point. I've learned to play with my voice and structure it. I get compliments on my voice. I get people telling me that I relax them. People fall asleep to my podcast, which I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
It's a compliment.
But that really kept me from even pressing record the first time, until I learned the most important lesson I've ever learned podcasting was no one cares. And I don't mean that as a negative thing, but I mean all the things that you're thinking about right now before you hit record the first time, I promise you, you are the only one thinking about you. It's not negative. It's just you're the only one thinking about you. If you can produce something and put it out into the world, and people choose to listen to you for a half hour, 45 minutes, they have other things to do. They have problems of their own. They got bills to pay. They got to get kids to soccer practice. But they chose you for some reason for 30 to 40 minutes. Now it's your obligation to entertain them for that 30 to 40 minutes. They're not worried about how you sound. They're already there. They're not worried about how you look. They're probably driving or working out, doing something else that doesn't involve you. Right. The things that you're worried about, the things that you hang up on yourself, those are your hang-ups. I promise you, nobody will ever say anything about the things that keep you from recording your first podcast. Write them down. Think about things that you're afraid of. Like, oh, what if they don't like the way I sound? Or I'm from Pittsburgh. I can make a whole sentence one word, right? So like, I understand these things. And now that I understand these things, nothing's holding me back at all. I'll record 24 hours a day, I'm okay with it. As long as my voice holds up. Sometimes about 3 hours, I lose it.
The voice is like, what are we doing, Jeff?
Yeah, you can't do this all day. This voice is limited. It's very special.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, getting over that mental gymnastics about, oh, I don't like the sound of my voice. Would I be received well? Or do I look good? I think it's all about societal pressure in a sense where we take on things that do not belong to us, as opposed to just leaving things out there. So once a person overcomes that, the back end of things. I know that is crippling for a lot of people, especially people who want to kind of like do it all, know everything that goes on in the back end. And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
But do you observe that people who try to take on the role of being the host, right, disseminating information, interviewing people, and also doing the back end, that the back end, the monotony and the brain work that the back end takes, right, sometimes can be a hindrance to wanting to continue the conversation because it is tedious back there.
Yeah. You should produce, you should host when you get started. I 100% tell everybody to do that because you don't know what goes into this and you'll never know unless you do it. And your first episode is going to be terrible.
Yes.
But it's not going to be as bad as your 10th episode. And it's not going to be as bad as your 100th episode. This is about repetition. This is about understanding what you're producing. When you get on the microphone and you record something, the first time you do it, there's going to be ums and pauses and weird things. And you may repeat things. You may, I messed up. I got to go back and do it. But when you edit that, and you hear yourself go and interrupting the guest 100 times going, you'll learn because hosting is a muscle. Being on the microphone is a skill set that you have to develop. Just like bodybuilders strengthen their muscles, hosting is a muscle that you will strengthen through repetition. Mm. And the best way to do that is to get on the microphone, record yourself, be like, oh my God, I'm breathing into the microphone. And I'm, sometimes I hear mouth sounds that drive me crazy, but I don't say a lot. You'll notice I'm cognizant of the ums and the hus. Yeah. Sometimes I say right at the end of sentences and that bothers me, but that only comes from repetition and knowing that it's a problem. Like when you understand what you edit and you get tired of cutting out the ums or you get tired of, taking multiple takes, you'll stop doing it and you'll become a better host because you don't want to be editing all the time.
Right.
Because there is work. There's, I say budget a minimum of 8 hours per episode. If you want to do something of quality, maybe it's 2 hours or 3 hours of research, an hour to record, and then you got 3 to 4 hours of editing. Put about a day of work into an episode if you want to have a semi-decent episode. It's some people who tell stories and different genres of podcasting, they take a full week to do their podcast. But for an interview style or a silly game show like I do, right. I say budget about 8 hours to produce an episode.
So I like how you went into different genres of podcasts because podcasting is not linear, right? The different aspect of it. Some people are very much pop culture questions, like social media questions and answers, right? Some people are trivia, some people are interview style, like we're having, some people are solo, right? So depending on the podcast style you are interested in, also there's work behind that. Some podcasts are heavy on scripting, right? And some are, free form like you and I are doing. So I think it's very important that a person understands what kind of podcasting they're interested in so that they understand the amount of work that goes into it. Is that something that you think is true?
Yeah, it's going to be your show. So, you're going to do different iterations of it. You're going to try things and like, oh, that did not work out at all. And you'll try things like, okay, there's something here. There was some reaction. I got a reaction out of my guest. That's something I want to delve into more with future guests. And through that process of editing, you'll get tired of the things that you don't like real quick. And it will help you become a better host faster. And you may start out by mimicking other people in your genre. If you're doing interview podcasts, you may listen to some interview podcasts already and you'll pick out little things, and that's okay. It's okay to emulate in the beginning. It's okay to be influenced by in the beginning. You don't want to become a carbon copy of the people that you listen to. You want to start to take those things and make them your own. I'm playing with my chip clip. Real professional there. You want to be influenced by, and then, but you are your own person.
Right.
You want to become you on the microphone. You want to become who you're going to be in episode 10 or episode 50. And that takes time. It takes repetition and it takes practice. And getting there is part of the journey. That, learning and, those small incremental gains that you get by doing it over and over again. That's why episode 5 sounds a lot better than episode 1, because by then you're doing a lot less and you understand maybe an intro, or you understand, maybe you have a music break, or you have some background sound effect that helps you transition to a new segment. Those things build up through time, through repetition. That's in your episode 20, you're like, okay, we're starting to fire on a few cylinders. This is coming together really nicely.
Great. So when it comes to outsourcing, at what point do you think a podcaster should it outsource certain activities? So on the back end, right? When should you outsource editing? When should you outsource maybe vetting your guest? When should you outsource interacting with your core audience? At what point do you hands off certain things? Should you do that maybe midway through your journey? Because you started by saying that it's important that you host and produce, so you understand the work that goes into it. So at what point do you start doing those outsourcing certain activities so it's not overwhelming? Because it can become overwhelming with growth.
Yeah. From the start, depending on your budget and what you're allocating for this, if you're treating this like a business, then there is an investment. You may want to invest in some of the editing upfront. You may want to do that right from the start and look for other ways to bring money in, whether it's through host-read ads, whether it's through sponsorship. Live events are a great idea. If you want, there's other ways to bring in money to offset the expenses. I would say don't do all the things right away. Right. There are some tools now that can help you with making yourself appear to be like a 10-person team. There are some great AI tools out there that do not use AI tools as your sole creative process. Use AI tools as your superpower to make you a 10x better person than you are now. You can train the tools to be and think like you do just by the inputs that you give them. And eventually, by episode 5 or 6, it knows who you are. It's writing a bio for you. You can ask it to write your show notes. You can ask it to do things that you would outsource to other people. So certain parts of the process, not the creative process, but the tasks that are repetitive, the tasks that you would need somebody to write show notes or write social posts based on that. There's some great tools out there that can do some of that very heavy lifting for you. Now, if you want to use AI tools for creative process, which I'll say that should not be the basis of your creativity, but you can use AI tools to brainstorm ideas, to develop ideas, and to delve deeper than you would from doing it 5 or 6 times in a row. You can say, I have this concept, and plug it in, see what you get, and it might give you like an outline or a bullet point, but number 3 looks really good on that bullet point list. And you'll say, okay, let's dig into number 3. And number 3 might give you another bullet point list and as an output response. Right. And you're like, okay, now that one little idea of 3 now has 10 ideas that I can, like what I said, you take from the world, make it your own, and then you give it back. Now you have the repetition firing faster because you're using the tool to become a better you, not to use the tool just to get ideas to publish those ideas, but use these tools, which are very, very powerful, also very dangerous if you use them improperly. Right. Use them in a manner that enhance who you are, enhance what you are, to help you get those reps in faster, to develop your thoughts faster, to bring things to market faster in ways that you wouldn't have thought of before.
Great advice. Great input. So let's go to a point that you touched on early in this conversation. Actually, this very last bit that we just discussed. When it comes to sponsorship, At what stage should a podcast or a podcaster start seeking those sponsorship to help sustain a show? So, should it be niche focused? Should it be passion focused? Or should it just be like a crowd, almost like a crowdfunding, sponsorship source? So, what is your take on that?
Yeah, sponsorships are as custom as podcasts are custom. You could be a local podcaster only talking about a local sports team with maybe 150, 300 downloads. And you may find a local brewery or a local restaurant who would love to sponsor that for, maybe $25 to $50 per episode. If you do 4 episodes a month, they may do like a $200-300 a month sponsorship just for that podcast. And that's just one spot in that podcast.
Right.
Other local businesses may jump on too, and you can sell a couple spots per show. So depending on your niche, depending on your market, there are opportunities early on. If you are talking about widgets, and those widgets are only bought by corporations like every 10 years, but it's a $10 million purchase,
Right.
you may only have 50 to 100 downloads. But to people who are trying to reach those people, you may have a very valuable sponsorship opportunity with a small amount of downloads. Now, if you're into trivia or pop culture or things that have a larger audience but not a lot of connection,
Right.
you need thousands of downloads before you start attracting an audience. And typically, what I say is let's think about that math. This is the part of podcasting that I love. Typically, for host-read ads, you earn about $25 per 1,000 downloads. So if you brought in, 1,000 downloads, you can get $25 for an advertising opportunity. If you get 10,000 downloads, maybe $250 for a spot, which per episode isn't change. It's pretty good money. But what I say, this is where I like to spin it a little bit. The value of that view for $25 per 1,000 is about 2.5 cents per download. So as a podcaster producing a show, you release it, you get 1,000 downloads. Per download, you're getting about 2.5 cents. So what's the value of that one single download is 2.5 cents. But another way to monetize your podcast is something that I've been building and working on is this live theater concept.
Right.
And we start to do the numbers, you're like, okay, wait, there is a difference between a download, somebody listening to your episode in their car during their workout, and the value of not a download, but an in-person person watching your show live.
Right.
And typically we sell tickets, I say, about if you do an hour to a 90-minute show, maybe with a meet and greet in there, $10 ticket is a very fair price. So now the cost of that, or the ROI of that one person showing up to your show is $10.
Right.
So if 3 people show up, now you made $30. So the value of somebody being there in person is like 400 times greater than the value of a download. So if you think about, in the car market, you have, the Chevrolet Cavalier back in the 90s, or you have like the Porsche 911, right? The turbo, the one that everybody loves, or a Lamborghini. That's really the value difference between a download and an in-person interaction where they can ask you questions. They can thank you for previous episodes. They can hang out with you after. They get to see your face. They get to, see how the sausage is made. They get to see you on stage performing your podcast. You can't get that from an audio download. So there are other ways to monetize shows, not just sponsorships. And when I tell people, like, look at what live performances can do for you in your podcast, it's really a game changer. You can have a connection and interaction and make more money than you would with less people, in person. And the reality is 80% of podcasters, 80% of shows don't even get 150, 200 downloads. Most shows aren't even in that threshold where they could generate advertising dollars because they have so many downloads. I'm telling most shows, start local. You can have a download presence. You can have just a digital presence, but doing something live for people in your local area with them in the audience, the value exchange is so much better. Like people are hungry for opportunities for third spaces where they can go, and it's not $100 for a night out,
Yeah.
right? We're talking $10 for a podcast appearance. That is good entertainment. You're going to meet other people and you're going to hang out with people who like the same things that you like. Like we are hungry for these types of interactions. We have so many people just, sitting at home doom scrolling on the couch. Like they are miserable. And you're starting to see people, I think, wake up to the fact that like, hey, we've got a problem with these phones. We are addicted. And
We are.
you're seeing a little bit bubble up, and you're seeing people realize like, okay, this is kind of insane. Like what we're exchanging human interaction for this human interaction on a device. And you see, I realize it now from 20 years of being a digital marketer. Like I need to detox sometimes and just get away from it. But you're also seeing it in like younger children, like 10 to 18, have realized like what this has done to their family situation. Their parents are just on the couch like mindless zombies just scrolling. And they're like, they're hungry for interactions too. And we're starting to see this change of, okay, maybe there is a world out there that we could be together and we can interact, and it's way healthier.
Right.
We can have some great things. And as a podcaster, back to podcasting, you're having an event where you're interacting with your audience.
Right.
You're in complete control of your future and your media company. It's really your media company. You're producing this and sharing it with the world. And the value to do that is so much significantly more than an algorithm telling somebody to download something and passively listen to it on their way, to work or during their workout. So think about other ways to monetize, not just, host read ads, but live performances it's such a great exchange for the audience member and the host. And, I don't know, just, open your mind to some other ways to monetize. That was a big loop.
No, I love that. It's a loop that needed to be big, because we get so pigeonholed into this very tunnel vision, one mind, one track thinking, that when things don't work out or materialize in the way that it is promised, it often leads to frustration and people give up, people walk away, right? The one thing that I do pride myself in is that I have this outside of the box thinking. It's like, okay, what other way can we go around this thing? Okay. So learning from everybody around me, learning from people that have done this before me, learning from people that are way invested in this as I am growing, right? In this arena, in this scenario, it has been very important to me, and learning what to do, what not to do, learning the threshold of things, learning, where things get tough for some people, and anticipating that. Right. So when I'm anticipating, okay, this may happen, and I'm like, okay, cool. There's ways around this. Oh, there are ways around this. So your beautiful studio, I can't stop looking at it. The color is so beautiful. Oh my goodness. For those of you that are listening to us, it is gorgeous. If you're going to be on YouTube, you're going to see the studio behind Jeff. So how did you get to this one? Let's talk about, the name. Podity.
See, I love the name, and my family was really against it when I came out with the name. I introduced it to them, and like, what do you mean Paduty? And I'm like, well, let's think about it. First of all, it's a 6-letter domain name, which I'm super proud of. You try to buy a 6-letter domain name in 2020, it's anybody who's ever bought a domain name, go ahead, try to find a 6-letter domain name. So a couple things about it. One is it's a portmanteau. It's 2 words put together, for podcasting, and duty as in mission. Like, this is my duty, this is my mission. But together, Paduty sounds fun, and it makes people chuckle, and you're laughing now, and it's fun to say. And that's what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build a space that's safe for you to come in. It's safe for you to laugh and have a good time and share these experiences. And you should be a little giddy. And you should be like, oh, maybe I'm saying duty. It makes people laugh and have fun, and that's really what this is. It's Poduty, Paduties, from the 2 words put together. And that childlike laughter and that giddiness, and this is something new, right? People don't think of, I can go to a place to listen to a podcast the same way they think about going to a comedy club to listen to a comedian, or going to a bar to listen to music, or a small theater to listen to a musician. Well, this is something in that realm, and it should be a fun night out. It should be an experience that you share with other people, and you should be able to, laugh and have fun, and bump elbows, and when you're laughing with each other. And that's what I'm trying to create, a social space, a third space for people to come out. It's not like going to an amusement park where you're going to be $300-$400 for the family just to get into the gates.
Right.
You can come here, have a family night of entertainment. I still do live trivia shows that are fully interactive. I just complained about people on their phone, but we play on your phone. You can answer questions. There's a real-time leaderboard, and we have a great time doing it. And this is an area that I really think is underserved. I really think this is a place for podcasters to locally come together and start to build things up. And just because I'm talking about what I'm doing here in Pittsburgh, for people all around the world, you have libraries in your area. A lot of libraries have media centers, or they do events at their library, and that they're very affordable, maybe $50 to $75. You can rent a room for an evening. Small coffee shops and bars love doing live entertainment. So if this is something that you're thinking of, think outside the box. I'd love for you to come to Pittsburgh, but start in your own hometown. Go to a local library or a coffee shop and see if you can do a Saturday morning show. Maybe you do a talk show about the local area, or you want to do an interview or something. Whatever you want to do, see where you can do it and start to see, is there value here performing, for the public?
Right. And the thing with the coffee shop, as again, my brain is running 1,000 miles an hour here, a minute, a second. The general gist of having a podcast, right, is usually like you have to be controlled environment and sort, noise down, lighting, and all those extra stuff, right? And you talk about a coffee shop in the morning. Right? Talking about addiction, right? That's another addiction that we have as a society. A hot cup of Joe, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm addicted. Yeah.
That is something that, it's just visceral thing about us. We don't function without hot cup or cold, whatever you're into, not just hot. So how do you merge into an environment that is active and busy, right, as a coffee shop in the morning while shooting an episode?
Yeah, I mean, it can be done. There's ways to position your microphone, types of microphones that you can use, and that'll come through you testing it. It can completely be done. And a lot of times they have back rooms, or they have a separate space. Some have like a little conference room. So there are other things you can do. If you think about arena shows, right? If you go see a rock concert, those microphones are open. The music is as loud as you've ever heard it, yet they're able to get a great quality of recording and sound in that room. So those things can be done with the right microphones. You can do it. You can certainly perform. Even at a bar or a restaurant, somebody comes in with a guitar and a microphone, they're singing, right? You're hearing them over top of the noise and the clang. And performing for people who drink is not easy. I will tell you, I've done some live trivia shows at bars, and the bar will overpower you if you don't keep control of it. It's really easy. So there's learning lessons to be had, and you'll get it from trial and error. You'll figure it out. There are some tricks to it, but and mine is more of we look at my theater space. It's more controlled than a portable live environment, but you'll figure out what works for you, and you'll do more of the things that work and less of the things that don't.
So, Jeff, question for you, right? So you've said a lot of things. You've left us with plenty gems, not germ, gems.
Yeah.
See, this is what
and
happens
germs
when you actually have an accent.
Yeah. I also left some Purell for everybody listening too.
He did.
Yeah.
You've left us with gems. And if somebody wants to reach out to you or learn about just being confident in general about taking their show live, what to do, what not to do, they have ideas, they're brainstorming, however, the overthinking or overlearning aspect of them guilty it's really strong. Is there a way that somebody can maybe have like a punch list of sort from you or have guidance from you on how to really own their podcast and to make the best of it, using a live audience, using virtual streaming devices or portals?
Yeah. I talk about this all the time. I do it for free too. My dream is that there's little theaters like this all over the country. So if you want to, reach out to me on LinkedIn, go to the website, poduty.com, PODUTY.com. Make it just email me. I will tell you exactly how I do this. I will tell you exactly all the tools I'm using because I want to see this pop up in Cleveland and Columbus and Wheeling, West Virginia, so that at some point, like touring musicians, like touring comedians, it might be small for a few years where, some podcasters might take a 2-week vacation from work and then go to Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Columbus and do a little tour where they're making, $300-400 a stop. So they're making a little bit of money. They're traveling, they're meeting some fans, and we can develop this and grow just like comedians did, just like musicians do. And this can be something more than just something we do in a home studio, in a home office. This can be a thing that we're able to travel, support ourselves for a couple weeks on the road and just get out there and share what we're sharing already, but with live people face to face.
Absolutely.
So if you're interested, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out to me on the website. I will do this same interview again, over and over again until we have hundreds of these places all over the country.
So this is your permission to imitate, right?
Yes.
Jeff is saying, let's do it. The one thing about podcasting that has really made me happy, should I use the word happy or content, is that most people who own their space and also go on other people's spaces are focused on building a community as opposed to being a silo. And that is so encouraging and so loving that people who enjoy conversations, because humans have lost the art of conversing. I don't know when that happened. Maybe the phone, maybe it's just, electronic devices have, detached us from the reality of, craving each other's attention or togetherness. So it is great that you are, developing this blueprint for other people to follow too. I'm very impressed. I'm so impressed. I'm so excited actually about what you're working on. And for somebody who enjoys interaction and live interaction at that is something that definitely does interest me.
Yeah. I mean, just like I said, just like your first podcast isn't going to be as good as your fifth podcast. Well, what I built, I know is a first generation of what a podcast theater can be, right? Somebody's going to take this idea and make it a little bit better. And then they'll put it out in the public. Somebody will look at that and be like, okay, I saw what Jeff did. I saw what the new person did. I can do something a little bit better and tweak it in certain ways. And this is generation one, right? But if I can get it out there to more people, we can have these little spots popping up all over the place. I think it becomes something really special and something that we don't have now in the podcast community.
Absolutely. I agree. I absolutely agree. So as we close out, right, I want to talk about Blab.
Oh, Blab. Oh, yeah. Let's go back to Blab. Look
at me light up. Blab. Let's talk about Blab. Why is it that there's no iteration of that platform, especially in the modern era with AI tools all over the place? And what happened? Was it a user, like I guess most things shut down because they don't have the user number anticipated. So was there anything within the community that, gave a clue to why it's no longer operating?
Yeah, Blab grew fast and it became unstable. I think what happened is there was performance issues. Live streaming on a social network has one main problem.
Right.
It's expensive and there's no real great way to monetize a live stream. The creators can monetize the live stream. They can have ads pop up in the corner, and they can get money from donations. But if you do a live stream on Facebook, until that live stream's over, there really isn't a way for Facebook to monetize that live stream. Same with LinkedIn. So what you start to see is, in order for them to run an ad or to play an ad,
Right.
they typically alert people when your live stream's over. If you look at your notifications, like, hey, so and so was live, or some just went live, typically you get to Facebook and that is already over. That video is already over,
Right.
which means what? Now Facebook can monetize and run ads, a pre-roll ad or a mid-roll ad while you're watching those videos. It's very expensive, right, to have the servers, to have the technology. And Blab had zero monetizing capability. So it didn't, I don't think it had like it might have had banner ads towards the end, but it didn't have enough to maintain itself. And that's a big problem, is how do you do this, right? So YouTube does it too. You can live stream on YouTube, and I use a tool like very similar to Riverside called StreamYard.
Right.
And StreamYard has a webinar element, which is really nice. You can privatize your live stream so that people can come and see you. But they just don't have the social element that Blab. Blab was purely built on driving a live audience to a current live stream, and the people there loved it. But the problem is, what's the business model? How do you monetize a live stream so that it's popular? Because even if you have banner ads, people aren't clicking a banner ad during a live stream to leave the live stream, right? They don't want to do that. So the revenue model is tricky. And I think that's the primary reason where Blab just grew so fast,
Right.
and it couldn't pay its bills.
Yeah, it sounds like a really great platform. I've really been looking into streaming platforms. The one that I know a lot of people use is OBS. So
That's what's behind me right now. Is
Stop it.
my camera's in OBS, and I'm pushing it here to Riverside. Yeah.
So what is okay? So I don't want a comparison, but are there similarities between OBS and Blab, or are they things that because somebody's listening, a software engineer is listening. If you're familiar, we kind of miss it.
There is. Let me see if it's still active. If you want to get close to, there was a couple that tried to emulate Blab,
Right.
and one was called Get Vocal, VOKL, and I just checked it out. It says we're in hibernation mode. They shut it down. I would love. I mean, everybody who was at Blab would say I would love to have another Blab, and I just don't know how to do it and to make it a business model.
But how is OBS paying the bills? How is StreamYard paying its bills? Like, the platforms that are offering streaming services, how are they paying their bills, and how could that be integrated into what Blab was?
Yeah, StreamYard and Riverside, those are paid platforms. So with Riverside, I think it starts at $30 a month. StreamYard paid versions are $40, $50 a month. You're paying for the bandwidth, you're paying for the service. Most people aren't using a ton of bandwidth. So if you can, there's a scale that if you can get 100 people to sign up for your service at say $30 a month, maybe 5 of them are going to use a ton of bandwidth, but they know that the bandwidth and the resources needed for the 95%, as long as they keep paying their bill,
Right.
it's going to cover all the expenses. So in that type of model, the users are paying for it up front. My StreamYard bill is like $80 a month,
Right.
just to have the ability to live stream and do webinars and have the recording saved for me. Whereas OBS is a great tool,
Right.
A great way to power the back end of your live streams. And I think that's open-based software too, where it's, people can develop for it and keep it going. I don't know the whole story about OBS, but think of that more as a tool to enhance your live streams. If you want to build overlays or lower thirds or connect social channels with comments and have things pop up, all that can be done and powered by OBS, which I'm using now. I just have my green screen behind me. I have my virtual camera on in OBS so that I can get a virtual background into Riverside.
Right.
Because that Riverside's a little wonky with if you want to use green screens.
Yeah.
So I'm controlling that before I send it out. So OBS is a great tool to enhance your live streams. And what you're using there, Riverside and StreamYard are great live streaming services to get that recording and to get that video out to the world.
Right.
And the nice things about services like this is each of us are going to get our own audio track
Yes.
separated. So when you download it to edit it, everybody who was a guest on your show has a separate audio track. So if I coughed while you were talking, you could edit that out and post. Nobody would ever know that I coughed over and interrupted you. It would be completely clean, which is really nice about these new services that are popping up.
Yeah, beautiful. So it's a learning curve. I mean, if there's a way of bringing back a platform like that, even if they have paid subscriptions from users, I think it'll be beneficial, at least to maintain, the financial ends of the business.
Oh yeah, if StreamYard, for $80 a month, if StreamYard emulated the social elements of Blab,
Yeah.
I would pay $100. I'd pay more money, another $20 just to have that kind of connection back. And it's an area they could get into.
I mean, who has somebody suggested it to them?
I don't know, but now that you're talking about it, I think I'm going
Hello,
to suggest.
Hello, StreamYard. Hi.
Yeah.
I'll be
Hello,
fine.
StreamYard. Yeah.
We'll pay.
Please mail royalty checks.
That's right. Heard it here first.
Yep.
I love it. So Jeff, oh my goodness, this was such an enjoyable episode. I learned a lot. I will be reaching out on LinkedIn and email and, smoke signals and drums.
All the ways.
I'll be reaching out because I love this aspect of social interaction and having conversations, because you want to give the certain conversations that I can ask all the questions I can think to my guests of somebody who may be interested in the topic. However, the unique nuances to everybody's experience, where they may have a boiling question that they want to ask, how much more provide that interaction either through a live audience or through streaming services or streaming means, so they can actually ask their questions. It's so beautiful. So any last tidbit to leave us with, Jeff?
Get to it and do it. That's it. Get out there, start your podcast. If you've been thinking about it or on the fence, you'll have so much fun just learning and figuring it out, and you'll really just have a great time. And I promise you, it's worth the journey. Create something, put it out there. Even if you just record something for yourself, just try it out and see what you think in the long term.
That's a word. That is a word. So thank you for being here, Jeff. It doesn't matter what career you have. You may think you don't have transferable skills. You will mess around and surprise yourself. So like you said, get to it, jump up, try your hands out, embarrass yourself is okay. All right. Embarrass yourself. We all have those moments like, okay, all right, I know not to do that again. Right. So if you don't do it, you would know what to improve. You wouldn't know what not to repeat. Right. And talking to people actually want to have genuine conversations, and people want to hear genuine conversations. Don't overthink it. Don't go for the perfection. It's crippling.
Yeah, it won't be perfect, but it won't be anything if you don't do it. So
that's right.
Take that first step and get it done.
Yeah. Every journey begins with a step, guys. Let's do this. We need more people in this community. All right. Thank you for being here, Jeff. Thank you for everybody who listened. Please let us know what you think. Interact, comment. We will put everything, Jeff, related in this show notes. So how to reach out to him, Padooty, LinkedIn. Yeah, giggle when you say Padooty. Everywhere we can reach Jeff, and I want you to have that direct contact with him. Learn all that you can learn from him, and he's out there doing what he needs to do. And I am inspired, and I mean that. And I will be learning very fast from him as well. So thank you, everybody. Interact. Let us know what you think. Have a great day and enjoy your family. Put the phone down. Talk to somebody.
Get off the couch, put your phone down.
That's right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Abeg Beck's podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. So join us on social media or drop us a message. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep pushing the boundaries of your world.